Hello, it's Anne here, your personal freedom coach, and I have the fantastic opportunity today to interview Hal Cranmer. Hal, I think it's better if I let you introduce yourself. I mean, I've been looking to to do this interview for a wee while, and it really makes my heart sing. It's a fantastic opportunity for me. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Anne. And I think part of that reason is I'm not very good at responding in social media. So I appreciate your patience and waiting for me. Um, yeah, to introduce myself, I'm Hal Cranmer. I've had quite a interesting career. It's great to be interviewed by a fellow pilot. I started my professional life as a pilot. Um, I was in the United States Air Force and went to flight school and actually started flying small, sort of very important person airlift in Beechcraft King Airs. Um, I was stationed in Okinawa, Japan, and got to fly all over the Pacific, fly some high-ranking people around. Saw all the countries of the Pacific. Was really a great opportunity. As a young guy, I was living in an apartment on the beach in Okinawa. It was a wonderful life. But then I transitioned to C-130s and flew for the Air Force Special Operations Command and got to see all the worst places in the world, taking special forces to dropping them into Bosnia, to Africa, to Saudi Arabia, the Middle East, a few in the Caribbean, actually, a bunch in Europe with Bosnia, not just Bosnia, but Kosovo. Um, and then got out of that, um, transitioned to commercial flying around the end of the 90s, flew for a company called US Airways. I flew 737s and Airbus 319, 320, 321s, and also the old DC-9 for a while, until 9/11 happened. And after 9/11, about half the pilots in America lost their jobs because the airlines were in such trouble. And so I had to look around, went and found a manufacturing job, worked for several manufacturing companies, primarily an aerospace company that makes lots of parts for airplanes. Um, and they're now called Raytheon Technologies. They started as Goodrich Aerospace. They got bought by United Technologies, and then United Technologies bought Raytheon. Um, while I was doing that, I found I'm not the big corporate guy um, that you're supposed to do on the track for corporate. I like to do businesses on the side, so I got into rental real estate. Renting to mostly college kids, bought some rentals. We were living in Minnesota in the United States at the time. And while I was in that, I was networking with some other investors, and they told me about assisted living. And I we wanted to go back to Arizona, where I started my career in flying at flight school in Arizona. And my kids were starting to want to go to college in Arizona. So we found some assisted living homes that were for sale, and we took the plunge and bought them. And that was about 8 or 9 years ago. I did it as a real estate investment, and I just fell in love with taking care of old people. And so I've been doing that ever since.
Well,
That's the
thank you.
short.
Huh?
That's the short version of my career.
That's fascinating. And then what fascinates me even more, having been able to transition into all those different careers, is how you looking after your residents and how different you are from any other assisted living home there is. And what a wonderful job you are doing. And not only that, but it really comes across as it has become a passion for you. Could you
Yep.
talk
Yep.
about a bit what you've been doing? How did you manage to become how did you manage to have a business, put it that way, which was very different from just renting home to students, wasn't it?
Yes. Um, yeah, so the I got caught up around 2008 when the world had the big financial crisis. Um, Lots of people were getting into real estate because the housing market was going way down in the United States. So there were a lot of houses that were very attractive prices. A lot of them needed work. There were people getting thrown out of their homes by the bank. We call it the foreclosure process. And so I just got caught up in that. Wow, everyone's making money in real estate now, buying these very cheap houses. So um, I did that. I'm not a big handy guy. Like I'm not a plumber or an electrician that fixes up stuff. My wife is. She's very good at it. Um, and she's 5 foot tall, so it's pretty amazing watching her wire a room or hang drywall, that kind of thing. I help where I can, but it wasn't it's not something I really enjoy doing. I did it. We made some money at it. We fixed places up, and most of the homes we bought were close to a big university in Minnesota, the University of Minnesota. So it naturally attracted college kids. These were old houses. Some of them were 100 years old. So they had all the problems associated with a very old house. But a lot of college kids didn't really care that it wasn't this brand new, beautiful house that a lot of families do. So they just wanted a place to stay for a couple of years while they finished school or they were in their first job and had roommates. And so I enjoyed that. I met some wonderful kids, but it wasn't a big passion. It was just a business, and they'd call me when there's a problem with the house, and I'd have to either hire someone to fix it or I'd go fix it myself. And there wasn't it wasn't like really improving their lives. I was just kind of giving them a place to stay. So it was a little boring for me, to tell you the truth. You just spend your days fixing stuff or chasing people, to get them to pay you. And um, we'd get new houses from time to time and we'd fix those up. And there's a lot of headaches with that. So there wasn't a long-term goal. There wasn't like a vision of where am I taking this business? It's just, okay, well, if I want to improve the business, I just buy more houses. So it just didn't, and as time went on, 2012, 2014 or so, there wasn't, the real estate market was coming back. There weren't as good deals as there was back in 2008 or 2009. So it get harder and harder to buy more of them. So I didn't, the business was getting tougher and I wasn't thrilled with it. So um, when the other investor talked to me about the assisted living, that sounded like a new thing that sounds exciting and everything. So, and a chance to move to Arizona. So we jumped on that. And then when I got to the homes and looked around at other homes, learning how to do it, talking to other people, it seemed like it was a very, how should I say it, fatalistic, like, well, these people are just going to die soon anyway. So why should we do anything with them? Let's just move them into our homes, make them comfortable, put them in front of the TV. We're just responsible for giving them medications. The doctors are the ones that treat them, or nurses, so we just follow what they tell us. And that's what over and over again I saw with many assisted living businesses. And I thought, um, okay, well, if we're going to do that, then people are going to look for three things. They're going to look for, is the place close to my family? Which, you can't, if someone's an hour away from you, they don't want to drive over to see their mother an hour each way all the time. So they're going to look for one near you. Secondly, they're going to look for, is it big and beautiful? Okay. I have some nice houses, but there's these big facilities that are just gorgeous, that they've spent a ton of money on, and everyone has their own beautiful, big, sweet room, and they serve very fancy dinners and, in a great big dining hall. So it's going to be hard to compete with that. Um, and then the other thing that everyone does is make sure they comply with all the rules and regulations from the government. So when they get their inspection, they have a perfect inspection and they can show families, look, I have a perfect inspection. Um, and I thought, well, okay, so that's all I do, and I thought, well, I'm not going to compete with people who are their facilities located near the family if that's all we're going to do, because all the assisted living homes are the same then. They're a home, they comply with the government regulations, and they're in this part of town. So I'm not going to get those people from the other parts of town. I'm not going to get the ones who want to spend a lot of money and have a beautiful place to put their mother and father. I'm not saying mine aren't nice, but they're not, the Ritz-Carlton gorgeous hotel looking kind of thing that, hedge funds with millions of dollars can spend building. And then the third thing is, if we're all compliant in government regulations, how do you say my place is better than someone else's? It's going to be whichever one you go to first that has a good track record with the government, um, gets your business, right? Or whoever's the cheapest. And then we're going to compete on price. Okay. And it's going to get harder and harder to make money at it. So I thought, okay, one, I need to differentiate myself and do something different. And secondly, I helped my mom take care of my grandmother and my grandfather when they were old before they passed away. And what I saw was, I want the best for them. I want them around. I want them to be healthier. Um, and so I thought, okay, well, maybe we can't compete with these places that look absolutely beautiful in looks, but we can compete with them on service, because they're not, they're doing just what the doctor says, giving the medication. They also are giving them food that looks beautiful. Like if you go into a big fancy restaurant and they put a dessert tray out so you see it, it's got all these wonderful cakes and cookies and, biscuits. And, they have all these fancy pasta dishes and loaves of French bread and things like that. It is very attractive to go into that restaurant. And that's what this assisted living did. The trouble is all that food is not really good for you. And so they're kind of working against themselves, because one of the big problems with assisted living, when a renter moves into a place, eh, you sign like a year lease, and you've got them for a year, assuming they pay and don't ruin the place or anything. But with assisted living, they could pass away a week after they arrive. Or I've had people come in, they just needed a place to die. And, okay, we'll make them comfortable, and 2 days later they're gone. And that turnover is very expensive. You still have to pay all your caregivers and staff, but you don't have the money coming in when someone's not there. And you can't, like when you rent out a place, you in the lease it says you've got to give the landlord 30 days, 60 days notice that you're moving out. Well, then the landlord for that last month or two is renting out the place, and showing it and getting ready so that they can have a new tenant move in the day after the old tenant moves out. well, with assisted living, you can't go, well, you're kind of about to die. So do you mind if we bring in new people, to see your room and everything while you're dying? It's not a nice thing to do. Let's put it that way. So you have to wait till they're gone, right? Then you fix up the room and everything, get it ready, start showing it again. So you're looking at least 3 weeks to a month till you can fill that room again. So that's a month you're losing. And then many of us have to pay these things called referral agents, these people that are used to work in hospitals. They're former nurses, they're social workers, wonderful people who use their network to find residents that someone checking out of a hospital that needs to go to assisted living or something. They bring someone and they say, you know, I'll help convince them to move into your place, but I would like a commission. And that's a month's rent. So you're really looking at 2 months of having a room unoccupied every time you lose someone. Well, in terms of revenue, you might fill the room in a month, but you don't get the money because you have to pay this referral agent. So so I thought, well, let's give them, let's make them a lot healthier, and then the family's happy because their mother or father's doing great. I'm happy because they stay a long time. um, and if I can get a reputation that I make people healthier, I'm going to have more and more people calling me without the referral agents. And if they want to be healthier, they may come from a longer way away because they can't get that where they are. And so I can open up my market a lot bigger. So it's good, great for the residents. It's great for me. It's great for my business, and also if they're healthier, it's a lot easier on their caregivers. If someone comes to us that's um, 180 kilograms, I'll try to use the European measures, that has all kinds of heart trouble and is bed bound and is incontinent, can't control the bathroom. Um, that's a really tough resident for our caregivers to take care of. If they're walking around and they may have a little dementia or whatever, but they're, eating fine, they're able to go to the bathroom on their own, they're able to shower on their own, that becomes a lot easier for our caregivers. So our caregivers are happier because they see the progress of these people getting better, and then it's easier on them at the same time, and so it's easier to keep caregivers. They feel a lot more pride of what they're doing than just being sad because they get attached to these people. They become good friends with them, and then just to see them pass away is really sad. So it's just good for everyone to do this. And it just amazes me that more assisted living aren't doing it. I guess that's my long answer to your question, but that's why I really got passionate about it, because it seems like we really can make a difference.
I think you make a huge difference. I don't I don't recall I've ever seen anywhere anybody doing things like that. And I would like you to tell me where you've gone on to a keto diet and you do red lights and you got a personal trainer coming that does gym with them and
Mhm.
make them exercise. Because as somebody say, when you get older, when you have no more muscle, that's the end of you.
Yes, it's true.
So if you wouldn't mind telling our viewers what you are doing, because you make them so much better, and the results you had with some of your residents.
Sure. Okay, so it, when I first got into it and started having this idea, I didn't know much about the nutritional aspects of ketogenic diets or anything like that. I just knew um, you know, food does make a difference. Like you can tell people who are alcoholics or people who just eat sugar all day are grossly overweight, have all kinds of chronic conditions, things like that. People who eat healthier generally are healthier. So it just, my mom used to say, eat your vegetables, finish your plate, don't eat that candy bar. So I just started with that, like I had a gentleman who came to my assisted living and he said, I don't want to be here. He was another pilot, by the way. um, I don't want to be here. I want to live at home. And I'm like, well, how badly do you want to do that? And he's like, really badly. And so I said, okay, so we're going to cut out all the sugary treats. We're going to serve you vegetables. We're going to serve you lean meats, just going off the basic stuff. Um, and, let's no sugary drinks, no soda, that kind of thing. And he agreed. And that's when I brought in a trainer. I said, I'll bring in someone to exercise you. And so we started like 3 times a week. And he started to exercise when the trainer wasn't there. So it was spurring him on to get better and better. And I told him that he came to us in a wheelchair. And I told him the day you can get up out of that wheelchair and walk to your wife's car and get in it is the day you go home. And so 6 months later, he said, I'm ready to do it. And his wife pulled up in front of the house. He got up out of the wheelchair, walked to the car and sat down in it, and they drove off and went home. And I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool. So it made me start thinking, okay, well, if he can do it, we can do this for other people too. And so I just started reading a ton of books because the government regulates our business and they're very uh, detailed in inspecting us for medications and prescriptions, as they should be. Are we following the doctor's instructions to the letter? Are we giving the right amount, the right dosages when they give it? And we have to track all that. They're very careful and highly regulated about that. Um, when they when it comes to food, they want us to sort of follow the general guidelines of the Food and Drug Administration in the United States, but they weren't, their big thing was they wanted to make sure there was a menu posted on the wall, but there wasn't any kind of you need to be serving them these meals. So I thought, okay, well, I've got a lot of latitude to do that. Okay. So I started just reading about nutrition and sort of one book led to another book. And, they have footnotes and you look at the footnote and go, oh, that sounds interesting. So that was the next book I read. And I just started diving deep into nutrition. Um, and so the first sort of nutrition advice I received was, vegetables are really good for you. A vegetarian diet is really good for you. Avoid meat. And the trainer I hired was a vegetarian, and so he was telling me this is what you really want to do with them. So I'm like, okay, well then let's do that. So we announced to the families that we're going to try a vegetarian experiment, and I hired some nutritionists to sort of teach my caregivers and my people cooking. Um, this is the meals we're going to make. The meals get very complicated. We had to kind of run all over town to find the ingredients, and the residents really didn't like it. They did not like the idea of eating a salad for breakfast. So I had a couple of them even tell me, I'm going to move out if you keep doing this. And so I'm like, and I was like, well, but are you all getting healthier? And I didn't see a big improvement in their health. Some of them lost some weight, but I didn't see like blood sugar going down that much or those kind of things. So, because we get a lot of diabetics. So I'm like, well, that's not working. So I went back to well, let's just eat healthy stuff and cut out snacks. And then I came across a doctor named Dr. Dale Bredesen, who has spent 30 years studying Alzheimer's and dementia and has reversed it in a lot of people. And his recommendation is a ketogenic diet to do that. At the same time, I bought some workout equipment from someone I heard on a podcast. His name's John Jakish, and he's a PhD in biomechanics and was looking at how to just I bought it for me of how the best way to build muscle is. And so he had a book that accompanied with it, and he said if you really want to build muscle, you need to use the carnivore diet. So I looked into that. I started doing that myself, but I was doing sort of a ketogenic diet with my residents. Um, and so I was seeing them improve a whole lot on it. So when we talk about a ketogenic diet, it's basically a diet very low in carbohydrates. The reasoning behind this for your family is because a lot of the reasons for Alzheimer's and dementia and those kind of problems is that your brain becomes insulin resistant. Um, your brain, like the rest of the organs in your body, in diabetes, has trouble bringing insulin into your cells because the cells are so full of insulin already. And so you have a lot of you have a lot of glucose circulating in your blood. So the insulin can't help your glucose get into the cells. I'm sorry, not insulin into your cell, glucose. So glucose is not just sugar, but it's carbohydrates that turn into sugar. So if you're just eating carbohydrates, those can't get into your brain. They can't break down in sugar, get into your brain, and use that sugar to create energy through your mitochondria. However, you can, in the absence of that sugar, the body can use fat and turn it into something called ketones, which can go into your brain even if you are inflamed, get into those mitochondria, energize those cells, and be able to um, allow those cells to use that energy to repair themselves. So, um, but if you are full of glucose, your body will try to use the glucose over the ketones and won't be able to. So, the other thing is ketones are made from fat, and that's the fat your body's storing. You get fat from insulin and having too much that it then takes those carbohydrates and stores them as fat. You don't get fat from eating fat. It's kind of, we probably have poor terms for everything. But if you get on a ketogenic diet, you can lose weight as well because you don't have the carbohydrates. The body has to pull from your fat stores to produce those ketones and burn them as energy. So there's a lot of good reasons to use ketones. And as I dug more and more into the literature, the more I found many chronic diseases besides diabetes, Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis, all these chronic diseases have as their root insulin resistance. In fact, they're calling Alzheimer's now type 3 diabetes because of the insulin resistant connection in your brain. So it seems like no matter what someone came to us with, whatever problem they had, even heart disease, um, can be a function of insulin resistance. Cancer is a big, um, you know, cancer feeds on sugar and glucose. If you can eliminate that, it's very hard for the tumors to stick around. So there's all these diseases kind of funnel back to this carbohydrates, high insulin, um, insulin resistance kind of model. And so I thought, well, we got one solution here that kind of work on all of them. And so that's why we started doing this. It started with we're going to cut down on the sweets. And I thought, everyone could do this, but it's hard to transition. But when they come to my home, we control what they eat. So it's not like, well, I'll just stop at McDonald's on the way home, or I'll go to, the grocery store and pick up a treat on the way home and cheat. You can't. You're in my home, and this is the food we have in the home. That's all you get to eat, kind of thing. We weren't really harsh about it. And I've got some residents whose families are like, not interested. Just give mom what she wants. If she wants ice cream, feed her ice cream. So um, I'm not 100% doing the keto, but for the people that we do it for, um, this was my way of improving them. And yes, and then we've started introducing those other therapies to get it even better. Because when they come to my home, they don't come to me when they're first diagnosed with Alzheimer's. They come to me well into it because, they're going to try to fight it at home. They don't want to pay for assisted living, you know, and then they find it's extremely hard to care for people while you have a regular job, while you have a family to take care of. And so they need to come to my homes. But it's so we really have to get intense on what we can do with the therapies. We can't just, okay, well, you just eat better and it'll clear right up. We need to do other things too to really work on them, just as if they went to the hospital and everything. We still give them all the medications with the doctors, but I try to work with the doctors to say, do they really need that? Could we cut back on it? Could we reduce it? Ultimately it's the doctor's decision, but it doesn't mean we can't have those discussions with them. And as we feed them the ketogenic diet, as they get healthier, we can have more and more of those discussions and take them off more and more of their medications because of things you talk about, the side effects that come from those medications. And you have to take other medications to counter the side effects of the first medication. So there's no side effects of the ketogenic diets that aren't just good things. So um, that's what excites me about it. That's what's it's neat to see them do so well on it.
Well, that is, I mean, I think it's fabulous. And it's fabulous that somebody tried that because, as you said, the rest of them, when you go into a care home, you just, well, you just sit there and you have whatever. Put it that way, they don't want to know you around there. So if you make a bit too much noise, they just give you another pill.
Yeah, unfortunately, I've had families come to me and say, "Oh, what if my dad's very active?" And I was like, "Great, let's make him more active. We want him to get better and exercise and everything like that." Um, and they said, "Well, the last care home we went to, they said, well, we'd have to sedate him then, like put him to sleep." And I thought, how do you put people in your home? Like, how does every family hear that and go, oh, okay, that's what I want my dad to do is just sleep all day. You know, no one's I just it boggles my mind that people still move people into homes that tell them that.
Sometimes I think that might be a not very nice thing to do, but they don't really care.
Right.
And the quicker they go, the happier they are.
Yeah, and
Poor Timmy.
I hate to say that, but I think there are people like that out there. I mean, I think, dad's got Alzheimer's. He doesn't know us anymore. Let's just make him comfortable and, you know, get this over quickly, that kind of thing. And it's sort of like they think of as merciful, and that's great. If that's what they want to do, and it's at the point, Alzheimer's does get to a point where I'm not going to be able to fix it, or anyone else is going to be able to. But um, those aren't the people I want. We've got lots of care homes that can cater to that. And so you have to kind of develop your niche. And I want the people who maybe are earlier in their journey, have a better chance at it, and really want to fight to improve it. And if you're not that, like you said, practically every other care home is more than happy to take you in. And I don't want to give you false hope. If they're at that point, then you know whatever care home, pick a care home near you, that seems good, and go with that.
Yeah, that sounds definitely a great idea because if that's what they want, that's what they will do. Uh,
Mhm.
the other thing you do is you do let the the family come whenever they want. You think that being able to, well, in your home, because there are only 10 rooms,
Mhm.
you say that people are never on their own in their bedroom.
We try to
and
avoid that. Some
they
are
go
bedbound and we don't have a choice.
they go out. I mean, they go to the dining room for lunch and dinner. They
Mhm.
go out. You let them go out in the sun. You
Mhm.
organize trips like you've just been this weekend, I think.
Yeah,
Somewhere
one of my
nice.
favorite trips to the air show. Yeah.
And they're really enjoying it.
Hmm.
And and thanks to what you do, some of your residents are perfectly capable of going out to dinner with their family
Hmm.
or going back for the weekend,
Right.
or even you had one that went on a cruise
Correct.
for
Yeah.
a week.
Yes.
Could you,
At 98 years old.
at 98 years old, would you like to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So, the visiting hours. Yeah, I didn't understand that very well because I see I understand hospitals want to do it sometimes to keep it quiet and everything, but I always think of care homes as it's a home and you're in your home and you should be able to have people over whenever you want. I also see the people who have family nearby, who see their family on a regular basis, do the best. I tell families that time with family is the best medicine we can give these people. You know, when they're several years away from the end of their lives, um, family is the most important thing to them, and so they become a lot more motivated also if they see their family and if they realize, if I can get a bit better, I can go out to dinner with my family. I can go home for the weekend with my family. I can go on a cruise. I can enjoy my family a whole lot more than if I'm just laying in bed and they come over when they can for an hour or two and then they go away and here I am just laying in bed again. So the more they can see their family, the more they'll have motivation to work with us and improve their health. Because now you've got a goal. It's not just I'm going to improve my health and watch TV all day, right? I'm going to improve my health and be able to get home. So um, also, I want them outside so they're not just stuck in the home. Um, it's they get to enjoy the fresh air, the sunshine. Arizona is very well known for sunshine. We get 300 days of sunshine a year, unlike the UK. Um, and so and there's all kinds of health benefits in terms of vitamin D, and it's great, for your skin in moderation. It's the fresh air is like a natural disinfectant. When we did have COVID go through the houses, we we put them outside for 45 minutes every day in the sun when they had COVID, and I didn't I didn't lose anyone. I mean, I had one guy who didn't want to do any of it and insisted on going to the hospital as soon as he had COVID, and unfortunately, he passed away in the hospital. But in my homes, I didn't lose anyone from COVID. Um, Most of them had very mild cases. I had a 100-year-old lady who um, had it for 3 days, a slight fever, some cough, and it was done in 3 days. So um, I think the sunshine really helped. We gave them some vitamins and stuff too. But just in general, the sun, they enjoy being out there. They socialize with each other, and it's really good for them. We go on walks around the neighborhood, so it really helps. And the motivation of doing those trips too. Like I had a gentleman who was bedbound, and we took a bunch of people to a local zoo and I didn't think to ask him because he was bedbound. And he said, I love animals. I really wanted to go to the zoo. And I'm like, well, but you're bedbound. He's like, what's your next trip? And I said, well, we're going to go to this air show. And he said, well, I'm going to that. And then he worked really hard. And in a month, called his like insurance company. They got him a wheelchair. We put him in a wheelchair and he came to the air show with us. So, you know, having others see what the healthier ones are doing also motivates them like, wow, I want to go do that kind of stuff too. I don't want to just sit in my room. And so you give them the opportunity to do those kind of things. Um, the mind's of, like we talked about earlier, the mind's a very powerful tool in your healing. If you're really motivated, want to heal, you're going to do a lot better than if you're just going to say, I'm very old and I'm probably going to die here soon. You're going to get depressed and your body's going to follow.
What we attach to I am is very important.
Mhm.
What you say, I am sick. Well, no, I am not sick. I
Right.
I am getting better every day
Hmm.
because somehow I believe that our mind, with all the downloads we have ever since we were little, which we had to have them because our parents had them, and so they're passing on what they know because we need to fit into society. They don't do that to be nasty or anything like that. They do that because they think it's very helpful.
Right.
I believe that unfortunately we had so many downloads, and all those downloads give us so many beliefs. And the question I have is, are they true? Are they
Yeah.
true belief? And I
Hmm.
think most of them are not. But then we need to have the awareness, because if we got the belief and no awareness, we don't know.
Hmm.
And what we don't know, we don't know.
Right.
And if we start uncovering it and having the awareness of that, you can start seeing that life could be completely different. We don't have to, I mean, my big word, me believe. You don't have to believe everything you're told. I mean, my favorite way of going on is question everything.
It's a
The
good
more
idea.
you, the more you question, and the better you're gonna be. Because how do we know it is it is correct? Or if it's correct for one person, is it correct for us? Can we do
Mhm.
better?
Right.
And the can we do better is yet again, if we think we can't do better, it's an assumption. Why are we assuming things?
Right.
And if we think we can do better, we can do better.
Mhm. Oh, I firmly believe that.
And it's really the same old thought, people getting up in the morning, it's the same old thought that comes to mind. And then the same old thought means the same day and a repeat of the day before, the day before, the day before. And everything that happened in the past then is projected into a future
Hmm.
that is not there unless that's the way we see it. We can
Right.
have a completely different future, but are we open-minded enough to be able to say, I got another day, it's fantastic. And you know it's fantastic because if you were left for nearly dead one day and you still have a few years ahead of you, you enjoy every day, you appreciate every day, you're grateful for every day you have. And then it's an opportunity to do new things, to find new things, to, well, in my case, I'm 69 years old and I started a
Wow.
new
I
job.
never would have guessed. Yeah.
So, taking people from A to B as a pilot, now I take people from A to B where they want to transition, but the difficult bit is not to do it. The difficult bit is to want it.
Yeah, very much so.
And then if we want it, then it's easy enough, I think.
That's the hardest part to get over is to get people motivated to do stuff. And then once they do, you can kind of leave them alone and it'll happen on its own. Um, there, I think in science and health, there's something called the placebo effect, where, when you have an experiment and you give some people this new medication and you don't give the others, but they don't know they don't have it. And suddenly they seem to get better as well. And it's kind of because they're thinking they're getting the medication. So they're thinking, oh, I'm going to get better from this. And they do get better. So it really shows the power of the mind. And if you convince yourself of doing something, it can happen. So I think that's a huge part of it. And surrounding people with other people who are having success naturally motivates them and say, well, I see John over here doing great, or Sally. I want that too. What are John and Sally doing that gets them doing that? And then they start doing it. And then they have the attitude, okay, I'm doing this. I'm going to get better. And they get better. So it's a wonderful, I don't know, force of the human mind. And it's something I love cultivating in people.
It is really important. You were talking about, well, I've seen an interview of you with a lovely lady called Melissa.
Oh, yeah.
Could you
Hmm.
possibly say what happened with Melissa?
Sure. So after I did a podcast, Melissa's family, her sister, I think, heard my podcast and called Melissa. Melissa was living in Seattle, Washington, in the United States, or the northwest corner of the United States, and um, was overweight, was having trouble walking, had tremors, and had dementia. And she wasn't too far um, down her dementia journey, but she was definitely very forgetful and having trouble. She was only a year older than you are. And so the sister convinced her to call us. And I told them about our program and how we worked with these outside consultants who um, have, are experts in dementia and how we can improve them. And so Melissa, her daughters actually lived very close to my home, one of my homes in Arizona. So she thought it'd be a good chance. The family thought it'd be good for her to see her daughters at the same time. So she came to our home. We gave her a whole lot of blood work, which we do with all the residents on this protocol. And we gave her a test, like a written test for dementia, and she scored a 15 on it. If you score anywhere from 0 to, I think it was 21, you have dementia pretty much. If you score from 22 to like 26, it means you've got mild cognitive decline. You've got the early stages of dementia. And if you score 27 to 30, you're like you and me. We're, normal people, no dementia. So she scored a 15. Um, she was very forgetful. You could see her hands shaking with the tremors. We did a lot of blood work. She had high blood sugar, as was expected. She had a bunch of other markers, hormones, things like that, that were out of balance. So based on her blood work, we put her on a bunch of supplements. We had to work with a doctor who was willing to prescribe the supplements because I can't give them without a doctor's prescription. And some of the doctors, especially like hormones, were like, I don't want to give them that. So we had to find a doctor who would. We had her exercising every day. We had our cooks making ketogenic meals for her, and we moved more towards the carnivore meals. Um, and we did red light therapy. We did hyperbaric oxygen therapy with her. She did, I think, 10 or 12 sessions of that. And the first indication was one of her daughters took her out for a 3 hour sort of mom daughter lunch date, just hanging out, go to the coffee shop. And at the end of that 3 hours, her daughter said to her, Mom, I've been with you 3 hours and you haven't forgot anything that we've talked about. And she was like, wow, you're right. And we just kept seeing improvement. We took her to the dentist's office. She had a whole lot of infections in her mouth, which are gingivitis, periodontitis, tooth decay. Those bacteria that are causing that tooth decay also migrate to your brain and cause problems up there. And it's sort of some of the reason you get those plaques that everyone talks about in your brain from Alzheimer's. It's those plaques are a defensive mechanism of your brain to stop the pathogens that are moving up there. So we had the dentist go through and clean out her whole mouth, clear up the infections in there. Um, and then gradually over 7 months or so, her memory improved. We did another test maybe 4 months in, and she was up to a 22, I believe, on the test. And then we gave her a test right before, at the end of the 7 months, and she was up to 28, like back to the normal range. Her tremors were gone. She'd lost 30 pounds. She came to us walking with a cane and walker. We filmed her throwing the cane away on our front porch as the day I took her to the airport, and she went back to Seattle and Washington. We stay in touch. She texted me last night, actually. She's flying down here to see her daughters about the middle of April. And she's totally embraced the ketogenic carnivore lifestyle. She just makes those kind of meals for herself, exercises every day. And she's coming to a cooking class with us. There's a wonderful lady named Maria Emmerich who gives us a lot of the recipes. She's a professional chef and helps people with ketogenic and carnivore meals. She's coming to Phoenix, and she's putting on a cooking class the weekend of April 13th and 14th. And Melissa, myself, my cooks are going to the class um, to learn, new techniques of what we can do to help people. So it's a tremendous success story. We couldn't be happier for her, and she actually may be moving down here permanently to be closer to her daughters and help volunteer at our homes or just spend time with us. And she made a lot of friends among the caregivers and the staff, my personal trainer, and so we'd love to have her back down here, but it'll be great to see her in 2 weeks.
It's such an amazing story. I think
It
that's
is. It's really,
fabulous. And if that doesn't inspire people, I don't know what will.
yeah, I
I
know.
wonder,
Right.
you
And she was 70 years old. It's still very young. Like, people get on that trajectory and they, decline quickly without any interventions. And, by 75, 77, she could be passing away. Now I can see her living to 90, 100, having a whole nother life here. So it how inspiring is that to give people back more of their life? We only get one of them, so you want it to last as long as possible.
yeah, that is very true. We only have one life, and we have to live it to the full and make the most of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then one day we go, but that is unfortunately or fortunately, I don't know, is what's going to happen the day we're born. we, we
Right.
can't do much.
We have a terminal illness the day we're born.
I mean, we can't do much about it. The day we're born, then we're going to go.
But as one of my residents said, I don't want to just die in a hospital bed with tubes coming out of my arms. I want to die jumping out of the window um, because a jealous lover is trying to shoot me.
Oh, this is amazing. This
Yeah,
is really,
that's
I
the
like
attitude
the
I like.
spirit.
Uh, yeah.
Well, Hal, thank you very, very much. I think you've been very
Right.
kind. You have left me all your details, and in the people I've been working with, I mean, there's quite a few that are looking after their parents, and there's quite a few when I did a workshop that were really having problems about how to deal with it.
Mm.
And it's fantastic that you give me all this information because you even tell them, I think, what how they can feed them for them to be better. You got all those little your your letter every day. You got a letter
Yeah.
talking about all that, and then they can go and look. I know we're in the UK and we're not in Arizona. I think if
Right.
one day I got a problem, I'll come. I'll be the first to come.
Sounds like you're doing pretty well. I don't know if you're going to be a candidate. Um, but they can help their parents at their home. They don't necessarily have to come to my home. That's what I'd really like. I mean, I hate to say it, I don't want to ruin my business, but I'd love to shut down the assisted living industry. I mean, even my parents say they're in their 80s and they're doing well because I try to help them a lot. But they said, we don't, you have a wonderful home, Hal, but we don't ever want to be in your home. So um, that's what people want. That's what I want to give them is, how can we keep them at home? If it gets to be too hard, yes, I'd love to bring them into my home and help in any way I can. But ultimately, what's the goal is to have people live their whole life in their home with their family and enjoy every day right up until the end. That they go to sleep one day and don't wake up, but the day before they were out, in their boat or hiking in the mountains or whatever like that, right?
Yeah, that is fantastic.
Hmm.
That is the way to go. I think that's the best way, is having
Right,
had a full day, then you go to sleep and you just don't wake up. It's
right.
fantastic.
That's what I hope for everyone.
Is there anything you would like to say that we didn't talk about?
Well, I'd love to do another one of these and talk flying, but
No,
um,
flying. We can do that another time
another time,
without any
exactly.
problem.
Yeah. No, the only other thing I'd say is you mentioned that newsletter. I love writing it. And then hopefully it gives people tips and techniques of what they can do, not only for their parents, but Alzheimer's and dementia is a disease that really starts in your decades before you see symptoms. And so I know it's really hard to sell prevention, but especially for people who see their parents getting Alzheimer's and dementia, many times their genetics mean they have a higher risk of having that happen to themselves, and they can stop it, they can prevent it. And so I try to put tips in of, you know, look at this in your 30s and 40s, early on in your life, get into a good lifestyle, and then it, what you do there is going to save you later on in life. And so um, that's why I try to do this newsletter, um, so that you can, maybe your parents are too far gone to have it, but let's protect the kids, and let's wipe out these diseases and never have it in the first place.
That is absolutely fantastic. I mean, I couldn't think of anything better, which is prevention, as opposed to having to cure anything, is prevention.
Mhm.
And everybody can do it.
Yeah,
All they have to do is make the effort.
right. I mean, I'm 56. I do pretty much a carnivore diet, and I feel like I'm 25. I did not feel that way before I started doing this. So it's not just you're going to prevent Alzheimer's and dementia and the diseases of old age, but you're going to really enjoy life in those, the second half of your life. You don't, it just feels so good to be really healthy that I want to shout from the mountaintops of everyone needs to do this.
It does indeed. I mean, I've been carnivore for a while now too.
And I'm assuming you feel the same way. I mean, I'd never guess you were 70 or 69,
Well, give or take,
give or
for like
take.
eight
Yeah.
months. I'll be
Okay.
70, but it doesn't matter. I don't feel it.
Hmm. Right.
So
That's what I mean. I have people in my assisted living homes who are 70 and are bedbound. So the choices you make can just make a huge difference in your life.
it does indeed. So everybody now, you know what you're gonna have to do. And we're not taking no thank you for an answer. You're gonna have to revise your answer. And really you have to look into your heart and think, is it really what you want for yourself? Is all I can say. Because at the end of the day, if you love yourself, and before you can love anybody else, you have to love yourself first, then you will look after yourself because it's an equal one. You
Yeah.
are your number one. And as somebody else that I know used to say, if you're not good enough for yourself, who are you good for?
It's very true.
So
Mhm. Wonderful.
thank you very, very much, Hal.
This has been an absolute pleasure, and it really is fun talking to you.